And we're live. Thank you all for joining. We can see many of you are here with us. I know it is an exciting talk with an exciting guest. So before we kick in, all right, just I always like to understand or at least get a sense of who's with us in the room. So in the chat box, if you can put just a one-liner and who you are, all right, just so we can know who's with us today. And otherwise, thank you all for joining. My name is Rony. I'm the founder of a community in the UAE called Founder Connects. What we strive and what we ultimately, work to achieve is to build the best supportive system for founders out there. And the way we do it is through two things. One, we create many meetups in order to allow, and create spaces for founders to meet and hopefully, spark collaborations between them. And the second thing is the residency. It's basically our core supportive system. The residency is simply, first of all, you have to apply to get in. You have to be accepted, and but once you're accepted, it's a supportive system that offers many benefits. And the first most important one is we match you with a group of other founders so you can swap playbooks that are actually winning. So imagine how much this could actually save you time and costly mistakes. So instead of you doing it alone, you can learn from others. And we do provide a lot of other benefits. One of them being, a matchmaking system every single week. You get matched with another founder by email. Another benefit is a $3 million in perks. And another important one is the office hours. And I here have one of our main experts in our office hours, Peter Thomsen. Peter, thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure. It's your initiative is something I've been part of many times, and I just what you created is pretty amazing for founders, Ronnie.
No, thank you a lot, Peter. And it's amazing how you never miss our meetups. So I should thank you, for always being in these spaces. I'm glad you're always there. I'm glad I always see your face. And with I think we created that friendship because I always see you. As simple as that.
Yeah.
So thanks for being around.
No, it's amazing. It's just something about the vibe you created. I've been to a lot of meetups and groups for founders, and there's something about the I'd like to call it the non-transactional nature of your events. Everybody just has the same agenda. It's I just love meeting each other, and there's
Yeah.
always an interesting conversation. And especially with your format of call it the speed dating early in the morning on the call, it works incredibly well. So it's one of
I'm
my
glad to hear
favorites to
that.
always come back to.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm glad to hear that. Great. So, your office hour basically is more of a personalized advice, per se, for the founders inside the residency. So, for those that are watching us today, if you're a resident, Peter's office hour is tomorrow. So, go into your residency, RSVP, because you can get, a lot of other personalized recommendations on your own fundraising journey, your pitch decks, and so forth, whatever is under the umbrella of fundraising. For the rest that are watching us, if you're keen to join our residency, so you can actually be part of Peter's office hours, I will post it in the chat in a bit. We do have a lot more experts that do give personalized suggestions and feedbacks. But why are we doing this publicly as well? Because there's a lot of our experts, they have amazing knowledge, and I always wanted to share this knowledge with the public as well. The only difference is we're going to have a chat, me and Peter, today, but for the residents, you can get to sit with Peter on the table, all right, with something extremely personalized. So do take the advantage of that, and do go into your residency, RSVP for Peter's office hour tomorrow. Great. To kick things off, Peter, all right, I think the fundraising topic, man, is the biggest topic that every single
Yeah.
founder has on their heads. It's something that we all think about. The most important part of the journey for a founder. It doesn't mean that founders they have to raise to succeed. There's a lot of aspects, so they don't take it from me as if that I'm just pushing for a raise just in order to succeed. There's plenty of ways. You can always bootstrap. You can always choose other channels to grow your startups. But fundraising is definitely by far the biggest topics for every or most startup founders. First of all, tell us who Peter is to start with, all right, and what are you doing right now, and what have you done previously?
Yeah. So I am call it a 30-year entrepreneur. Started my first company when I was 18 years old. Was always interested in business before that. Very quickly, that transitioned into both consulting and helping a lot of SMEs and startups in their 0 to 1 journey. And then I spent probably a couple of decades doing a lot of 0 to 1s, a lot of coming back into companies who might be in some trouble and helping them out to restructure them. So I have like the entire trajectory of a startup. I worked it all. Then over the last 15 years, mostly, it transitioned more and more into the fundraising aspect. I still help them with all, but a lot of fundraising across Europe and the Middle East and Asia, Africa. So far, I probably helped in my career 900 plus companies.
Wow.
We fundraised about $70 million that I've personally been involved in helping them with. So everything from pre-seed to Series A. And used to working with investors on all levels and managing the investor relations. So I have a very good understanding over that time what makes the investor tick, what they're looking for, how they view you in the room, and the pitfalls that every founder typically. A lot of the pitfalls are always the same, and it's typically only lack of experience, right? If you haven't been exposed to it, you will get it wrong the first time. So today I focus a lot of my time on helping founders to accelerate that journey, right? To get it ready for them so they can be more prepared when they talk to the founder, to the investors the first time. Because one of the key aspects, you know this as well as me, Ron, when we're in the room, everyone asks, can you give me a warm intro to an investor, right? And one of the key aspects they get wrong is it doesn't matter with a warm intro unless you're not ready when you're in the room, right? And this is what a lot of them get wrong. So if you can accelerate that learning, which is also something I really have passion for and I really enjoy, it's been part of my DNA of my whole life working on that stage. So to give that forward and work with founders on getting them better, faster, ready, that is what I do.
So you've mentioned about most of them do tend to get it wrong the first time, right?
Yeah.
What are the common mistakes that you tend to see across most of these founders, especially first time founders?
Step number one is it's extremely clear for them what's in their head, but it's not coming out either in their elevator pitch or on the deck. It just doesn't come out, and that's a frustration. Then they get frustrated when they're not able to communicate it, and they don't understand why you don't understand it, right? As an investor, they just don't get it. And then I think it's a shock for them what it actually takes to work with investors, and they reach out. You expect someone. If you're passionate about something, you kind of expect the next person to be passionate about it. Interested, it's very hard. But I do want to stress that it's not impossible. But it's a journey you have to be prepped for. Like the best investors I speak to, they say, you want a couple of meetings and maybe a term sheet, prepare for 100 reach outs. And most people think, well, I knew this guy who got it on one meeting. Either there's something to that backstory, maybe this is his fourth attempt on a startup or something. And once in a while, the guy got lucky, which is very interesting because when they get lucky, they might succeed on that one. And I typically see them fail massively on the second round because they didn't learn anything yet, right? So you can have luck, you can have the timing. But if you learn how to look for making your own luck, making your own timing, and having your message clear, it becomes an easier journey. It's still not easy. You know this. You've done this yourself in your life. It's still not easy, but
not easy at all.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there is. It's such a long topic, so we'll be probably talking for 6 hours if I try to cover all the regular mistakes. So how I work with funds, over the years I built like a framework of, call it a checklist that you go through. But I think from any checklist you find in the world, you have to make it personal. You have to find your story and your journey, because if you do, the investor believes in you. When you just tell some run-of-the-mill story that someone else wrote for you, they don't capture you. They have to believe that you can execute, because your idea, they probably heard it before, right? And so you think it's the first idea, first time someone thought about this in the world. Usually it is not. They only care about can you execute it or not, right? And if you can't convey the belief that they have to believe that you can execute it, you're not going to get anywhere. So, and that's where the regular journey practice it, right? I'm trying to
You
look
were
at the chat
cutting
at the
off
same
for a
time.
second. Yeah, you were cutting off for a second, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to the execution, especially for early stage founders, or if you're in pre-seed or even seed at the, I think most investors, all what they care about, if this is the actual team that can execute it or not, they
Yeah.
they don't care much about all the rest of the numbers, because they know these numbers could possibly and will probably change at a later
Mm.
stage. I think they're just in a mindset to try to understand if you're the you're the team that will be able to do it at the end
Yeah.
of the day, right?
So true.
Uh,
And you touched on something important with the numbers, if I can mention that. So when the investor asks you to do a 4-year plan, 5-year plan, whatever, you just said it. They know this number is not realistic and it's not going to hit. They just want to know, are you capable of making the plan? Do you have it into or figure out how do I do a proper business plan? How do I track it? How do I measure against it? That's what they want to know, because they know that depending on the round you are, they know that you don't know yet. Until you
yeah.
went live and you have some metrics to show to, you have no clue. You can guess as much as you want, educated guesses, but it's about knowing that you have the skills and the drive to make it happen.
Last time I stumbled upon something very interesting, which is because that TAM slide became such a BS slide for everyone, and even founders started becoming or knowing a little bit more about that. This slide is no longer important for investors, and I agree with you. They just want to test you out. But I've stumbled upon something interesting last time where a lot of these founders and a lot of these investors, especially in Silicon Valley, what they're actually requesting now lately is to kind of, replace that slide into a, I forgot the name of the slide exactly, but basically they want to know if you want to go from 0 to 1, how does the puzzle look like, right?
Yeah.
What type of partnerships that you need to land? What are the how many clients that you might need to onboard, and how are you going to actually onboard these clients? So they really want to see some kind of let's say journey of your startup, going from 0 to 1, and who are the people that you will be able to land throughout this journey itself, so they can get a sense of if it's something that is very possible. So I'll give you an example. If I'm pre-seed or even idea stage, and I go like, what, I want to do something in space, and the first client is going to be SpaceX. I mean, as an investor, I'm going to go like, hey, chill.
Who do you
Right?
know? They will ask, like, who's your brother-in-law?
Yeah, exactly. So I think this gives them a sense of, if this journey is actually realistic or not to begin
Yeah.
with, and it really makes a lot of sense, because really I mean, I've been in the tech world for about 15, 16 years, and I've never, when I used to do my initial numbers, it was totally different, even with experience, because you can never get an exact number or an assumed realistic number until you test the markets. Simple. That's it, right? When it comes to the pitch deck, speaking about these slides, what would be your most important slide?
Your unique value proposition. There is one slide I like people to put before that, but you have to tell them why you're unique, what makes you different. If you can do that, you're golden. But as a deck it's a story, and you have to. For me, typically people say, "Here's 10 slides, you have to do them." It kills the room. You have to build a story that brings, each slide has to bring energy. That's why I want to see the next slide. And how that works very well. Like the first common mistake, and you see it when people pitch on stage, they say, "Hi, I'm Peter Thomsen. I'm running this dog pet care place," and blah, blah, blah. Already they're sleeping or they're swiping their phone, right? If I can say, if you have dogs, did you know that 80% of dogs gets locked into the house for 15 hours a day because people work overtime and there's no way out of it? And if I'm a dog person or from that space, I'll be like, wait, what? Right? Now I stopped you. You're going to pay attention to me for the next 30 seconds, but only 30 seconds. Now my next slide has to be equally compelling, right? The beginning of a deck is always the same, but I like to put this shocking statement, if you can find about your industry. It has to be something you don't know, something the investor has not heard that stopped them in the tracks. It doesn't help to say, this is a $2 trillion market coming up. They'll be like, who cares? We all know. It has to be some key thing that they didn't know. It means you did your homework and you understand your industry, right? And when you're able to nail that down, it changes the entire conversation. If you're lucky, they stop you and they start talking to you instead of actually listening to your entire pitch, right? Now, because you caught them. So each slide needs to be designed so that they can naturally be like, I understand what's coming. I want to talk to you now, right? And this is what I work with founders on, finding their story, and the deck has to fit their way of telling a story. If I try to force someone to tell a story which is not natural for them to tell it, it doesn't work. So we have to find a natural way for the founder to tell their story. At the same time, it has to follow a certain pace and a certain speed and a certain interest, right? So for me, it's that showstopper that changes the entire pitch.
And I think coming up with the story is probably the most beneficial and probably the hardest thing that a founder can actually do, because today anyone can find a template for a pitch deck, but not anyone can actually come up with a story. And it's not the pitch deck that actually gets you the funding; it's the story itself. Because it will make it and break it for you. It will get into the investors' brains and get these investors to understand what you're trying to build. So yeah, definitely. I mean, story is the biggest thing, and when it comes, so obviously, when it comes to stages, different stages requires different types of either stories or even pitch decks, right? To sum it up, based on your experience, what do you think, let's say for example an idea stage or even pre-seed stage requires in terms of how many slides, and what are the important requirements in your opinion versus, for instance, a Series C founder? Can you give us like a brief comparison?
I think for the topic of today's call, I would shy away from Series B and Series C. I think 0 to A, because they have certain similarities. When you get into Series B and Series C, you get this institutional professional companies who put big teams on you and helps you do it. It's out of your hands by that time, right? But up until true Series A minimum, it's all you. It's all you as a founder who has to manage it. But they are vastly different. If you are pre-seed idea stage, your deck, here's the trick. When I say a deck can be 6 slides, if you didn't make 50 slides first, you're doing a mistake. Because the 50 slides you're making, it's you dissecting your own business and you're planning it. If I just put together 2 or 3 slides, I didn't think it through yet. The trick is to do the entire journey and then boil it down to that short story. A pre-seed deck for me is like about 6 slides. And I'm not counting the cover and the outro slide, but you need the showstopper. You need some statement that explains, that stops me in my tracks and wonder. You have to state the problem. If you can, and when you're talking about the problem, you have to use it, preferably a personal story. If Peter sat in his apartment and thought, I think there's a problem in the airline, they can fix something so and so, and I know nothing about it, no one will believe me. If I, while boarding my plane, discover that we can board the plane faster if we do so and so, now I can tell that story. This happened to me while I was doing it. Now that I need to convey that in the deck, and now the investor believes it, right? And from problem is solution right away. How am I solving it? And people have a tendency to confuse solution with product slides. Those are 2 different things. The product is the journey, what it looks like, what the customer is actually dealing with, right? Solution should be so clear that here's a problem. My solution is high level so and so. So the investor is just like, I get it. I don't need to see the product yet. I understood what you're solving. You need to cover your famous market slide, but there is ways to do it. It's call it the opportunity, and then what you're going to achieve. Like an angel investor, the stage we're talking about now, it's typical angel investors or friends and family, right? They're not even going to worry yet. Is this a $200 billion market? Can you go and execute, and do they have some faith in what you're doing? So keeping it short, after that, you need to present yourself. You need a team slide no matter what. which is another one of your really key slides. It should be very short, but it needs to give me belief again that if I see Rony has done so and so, very short few sentences, I already believe he's exposed to this and he understands why he needs to solve this problem. This is a key factor today. Sometimes you see in founders, they want to pitch something, they have zero experiences and they can't prove any relevance to the industry. Unfortunately, they might have the best idea in the world. My advice is now you need to find a co-founder from that space, because the investor will not believe, they will not take the time out to invest in you if they don't believe you understand anything about that industry, because it's a safer bet for them to invest in someone who has done something in this industry before, because they know the next guy can crack it, but he will spend longer and more money. So they prefer to put the one in someone, okay, he's at least exposed to the industry, he understands the mechanics of it. So if you have the best solution, go ahead.
So finding, when you're talking about finding a co-founder in that specific industry, that is, if you're not from that specific industry, you mean, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So if the vice versa, right, where I see a lot people have the best idea, they want to solve something. The most common scenario co-founder is you're not tech, you need a CTO, you need a technical co-founder. Which is funny because every single networking event I've been going to Dubai for the last 3 years, people knock on my door like, do you know a CTO? You might join me. Because everyone has a great idea, they just don't know how to execute it, right?
By the way, we're creating a space for that soon. Hopefully, hopefully we solve this.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a very interesting. Luckily, though, with the massive advances of AI and vibe coding and so on, you should be able today, pretty much any idea you have, to at least validate it without getting too technical. And I think that's such a huge advantage comparing to a decade ago, even 5 years ago. You can take any idea and you can validate, and you can validate it with customers, which makes you so much faster. If you have bothered to validate your product by the time you put that deck or the pitch in front of an investor, you're golden. There's nothing more important than a traction slide, right? But one of the 6 slides. We didn't cover it completely, but traction for me is, most people are like, but I didn't do anything yet. How I advise that is, if you didn't do anything yet, you go and find the best competitors in your space who have proven that it works, and you talk about them. And you say, this company is selling for 230 million a year in my space, and people are willing to pay so and so much. Immediately, people's fear is like, but they're big, why would they invest in me? Do you follow immediately with, why am I different? Why am I unique? If I now believe you, you already validated there's a market, and you made me believe, you can tap into that market because you're doing something slightly different. How many histories aren't there in the world of, there is a big player in the space, they're doing well, but there's always innovation, right? There's always a smaller player who comes in out of nothing and just does better or captures a big share of the market.
So I love how you're thinking about it more on the story flow, because eventually you're getting the story to flow as well, not just the slides to make sense. And there's obviously a lot more to the story nowadays. So let's say for instance, you've got your story right, okay, and a lot of people think, let me just sit by myself, try to come up with a story. Look, the thing is, it takes a lot of trial and error as well, and that's why I think it's very important for anyone to kind of pitch whatever they come up with, just so they can test out the markets. They can test out, if these people that are not as important for them are actually getting the story. If these people are getting the story, this means that these potential investors would, right? But I mean, that's testing out the narrative of the story. But today, let's assume you've got the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would be the first thing that these founders should actually be doing, if not doing it in parallel with crafting the story itself? What do you think is the most important things that a founder should do in order of importance?
You have to do your research and tracking down the right type of investors for you and your stage. If you didn't do that, you're going to waste so much time just trying to reach out to anybody and a network in desperation for getting money. And it's a complete waste of time, and it wastes your energy so massively. So you're not going to be able to build your product and your company. because you're going to spend so much time on barking up the wrong tree. It's one of the most important things you can do. I'm already taking for granted that you're working on your product, right, and your company, and do that. But if you don't plan your fundraising correctly and you do it correctly stage by stage and do the research you need to do, you're going to find yourself in 6 months working only on fundraising and not on sales, not on the product, not on the market, not on customer feedback, nothing, because you're going to be swamped by it, right? And that is because you didn't do the research, talk to the right ones. It is scary. If you need money now, you maybe launch and you need money now, and someone tells you, well, out of these 500 investors, choose 20 and talk only to them. That's very scary because it's a numbers game, right? But if you did that well, you're talking to the 20 right ones who will probably be interested in listening to you instead of just talking generally. But I want to touch on one thing you said about the story, which is pitch. It's a very good point. You need to just pitch everyone around you. Pitch your mom, pitch your friend, go to an event and pitch your camera over and over and over. Do you believe yourself when you're watching it back? Does it feel like you? You have to think like, if I just met you at this networking event and we just start bantering about something, my story should sound like me. It should sound like how I would talk to you normally when I'm excited about something, right? And you're very capable of seeing that on camera if you see yourself like, okay, this is not what I sound like when I'm excited about something. So you have to do that. And that journey continues, right? So it's the same later in your journey. It's a continuous evolution to keep pitching your story and just keep crafting it.
I like that recording yourself. I've never even thought about it, but it's so interesting to see myself actually pitching and recording myself.
Yeah,
maybe I should do that one day.
You should do it often. It works very well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I missed that point. I always tell people go pitch everywhere, whatever you can, but I never, it never came to my mind. Actually record yourself. It's quite true. But yeah, I mean, as long as I've pitched more than 1,000 times in order to really get myself super, I wouldn't say comfortable, but knowing how to drive the conversation with investors. You would actually eventually reach to a point where you're driving the conversation and not just waiting for the questions, right? And I think that's the benefit of pitching as much as possible. And assuming a lot of founders, I've obviously from the community, I stumble on a lot of founders and I speak to a lot of founders. And I think one common thing that I've realized that a lot of these founders, they just, I understand them in one way, all right, because, founders do want to raise money in some cases to just at least kick it off and hopefully become, that specific money to become their door opener for their own startup vision, right? So it's quite a sensitive thing for them, and most of them don't have the runway that some of us might have in order to survive without that investment that we run after, right? So what I realized that they start spraying, everywhere that, hey, what, I'm raising. First of all, what's your opinion on that? All right, and what do you think is the best way to actually, get a result?
There is two parts I want to cover from that question. The last part is spray and pray is terrible, because if you for some reason got a meeting and it's the wrong investor or you're not ready, you burn that bridge. That investor is not going to open the door for you again in 2 months because, I already spoke to Peter. I'm busy. I have new founders to talk to. So you have to be really ready when you. There is nothing more important than getting into the room, but if you're not ready, you should never be there. And there is something about, you touched a little bit on it earlier when we're crafting the story. When your job is, no matter who you talk to, even if for some reason you got introduced to something who might have invested in someone like you, so they can't invest, maybe their funds are currently depleted. It can be any sort of situation they don't invest in you. Your job as a founder is that when you leave that meeting, they should know, his name was Peter. He runs the dog care center, and he's in this vertical. And I believed him. He's not for me, but I believed him. That's your job. And people sometimes forget that, right? I had a very interesting conversation, actually on one of your events with a founder that had a great project, but on stage, the person was a little bit flat. And then I was talking to the person afterwards, and I was like, I asked about the company, and they became this energetic bubble, telling me the story, and they were into it. And I was like, why didn't you do that now up there? And they said, yeah, but I know this room, there's probably no investors for me, and it's not my customers. I said, yeah, but that's not how you should do it. Every time you talk about your company, it should be the same energy and the same story and the same passion, because you don't know who will convey that story. I might not be from your industry, but I might go later and say, oh, Rony, you invest in those products, and there was this amazing founder. That is one of the key parts of your job as a founder. You have to always be on. And if you really believe in what you're doing, this should almost come automatically. You should never pitch like, oh, these guys are not for me. Someone asked me about my company, I will launch into an avalanche of like, yes, this is what I'm doing, right? Because I get excited about it, and you should be excited about it. But it's hard to carry that energy when you're trying to do it 100 times, especially when you're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
Because another thing, this very well, I pitched that many times. What does investors do? They do not tell you why they're not investing in you. They just said, thank you. We'll get back to you. Or they might say no. They might say, we'll get back to you. It's almost worse than no. I prefer a no. And then you wonder why. There's no why. So you get zero information, right? So this is where, like me, I'm hoping to help founders, because I've been in the room so many times on both sides of the table, because we also invested in many companies. So you start getting a very good idea of what is the no based on. And if you did your research on your investors before, you should know. If you know they don't have funds left in this round, why are you talking to them? It doesn't mean you can't have a conversation, but there's different way of being on the map of an investor. There is asking for money, and there's just being on their radar. And that's something else which is really important, that most founders, they don't set it up correctly from day one, so they miss it. And what I mean about that is, if you make an investor database, you reached out, maybe people you don't get an answer from, right? They should go out an email, preferably monthly, from you to all of them every month. 2 lines, 3 lines. Here's the update. Here's what happens this month. This is what we recommend. That's it. 6 months down the line, year down the line, you will suddenly get a call back from someone. Yeah, because we saw you just raised, and we're wondering and you're in the right industry, and they actually already know you because they've seen your annoying little email. Simple, but keep it simple. 2, 3 lines. We signed 2 clients. We added this feature. You just stay on their radar. And it's not a lot of work. It's half an hour to an hour once a month, right? And it annoys me when founders are like, yeah, I didn't have time. This is about, you have to choose during the month which things are really important for your business. Probably 80% is not important, but you keep tackling it, you get busy. And 20%, you just have to make yourself a rule that X hours a month, I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to do them religiously because they are important for the future of my company. The one thing you can't control is when you get money. So you just have to keep building, right?
Yeah, we used to do that. So we used to have an investor update newsletter going out in my previous startup, because we always had to keep our investors updated. And whenever I used to land on a potential or interesting investor, I used to actually ask them, hey, can I put you in my investor update so you can, receive these updates? And I'm going to say most of them, if not all of them, do want that. Because at the end of the day, investors are, they're freaking out on missing out on an opportunity at the end of the day. So they want to make sure, they're kind of, in the weeds of these details, just to make sure that, they don't miss out on the opportunity, just in case, something huge happens with you. Otherwise, I mean, it's very important to keep them updated. When it comes to, scraping, obviously, a lot of founders, they just try to scrape LinkedIn, try to find these investors. What is, like, for instance, what I would do in my case, so you can give me some of your opinion on that. I would definitely choose, the lowest potential investors, so I can start with, or at least test my pitch on them before I start reaching out to the most important ones. Do you agree with that? If not, do you have a different way of doing things?
100% agree. 100% agree. Because on the big ones, you only get one shot. And what you shouldn't be scared of, if a smaller one says we're very interested, you're allowed to say no. You asking for money when they offer it doesn't, you're not obliged to say yes, right? Which is still very scary, but your job is to choose the right investor, because first you have to do like I call it, you have to do a dance for the investors. But basically, if you touch it, you have to create the FOMO. They have to feel like this train is missing the station at some point, and they want to be on board. Now the conversation completely shifts. And when you, so don't be afraid of saying no. Even the best founders I see, even when they get the right offer, and I see them, and I'm like, bro, you have 4 days of cash in your bank account, and you're in trouble. And they get an offer, and they're like, no. And literally, they say, we don't need money right now. We want to see what you can bring to the table. You should see the investors, they start panicking, right? Oh, I need to, please let me transfer your money. Sign this now. And that's your job. It's a game. It's a game of, it's a boxing game, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's quite hard to say no, but obviously it would make sense, it would make sense for you to say no if the terms are not right for you, right?
The terms, and I think people forget, the best advice I ever got quite young, I was on some investor event with some companies in Germany, and there was VCs and their lawyers, they had like a meetup the full day. And one of them said, guys, you're all here asking for money. What you should ask us 1,000 questions to see if we're the right investor for you. Because when we sign, we're married, and divorces are very ugly. You think you can just, I'm not going to talk to him anymore. If he's on your cap table, you are married to him. And that will, if that turns into a difficult relationship, you will spend much more time dealing with that than actually moving forward. So it's so hard to say no to money, but the wrong money, it kills every single startup. There's so much fights and problems. You need the right money with you who can open the right doors and be supportive on your journey.
Yeah, I think, Peter, what you're doing here right now, which is, I think, more important than the fundraising, is just the shift in the mindset, because, you're trying to get founders in the right mindset to begin with, because eventually most of the founders, are probably dying to raise any amount of money at the end of the day, right? That's the reality of it. It's just that, you kind of train them in order to get into the mindset to raise the right money, because that's what's important. And we spoke about the 6-7 slides, and speaking a bit of the terms right now, what are the common mistakes that you've seen, all right, early stage founders tend to go through when it comes to accepting terms that are not beneficial to them? Or if you want, in order not to position any specific, common fatalities, let me call it that way, since it's a very, it kills startups, right? I mean, a bad term can kill startups. So what are the things that you would actually tell whoever's watching us today to keep an eye on, or to watch out from a specific term?
I will start differently than what they probably expect. You can't even reach the term. Most founders, they raise money at the wrong stage, because you said it earlier.
Interesting. Yeah.
They just want to raise money, and they haven't really thought through what it means yet, or what it will cost. This comes into the terms later, because if you raise at the wrong stage, it hurts you as a company later, because you will raise at the wrong terms if you raise at the wrong stage. I have a lot of founders coming to me and say, Peter, I want your services. Can we start working together? Because I just need to get investment very quickly. After a first session with them, very often I say, you shouldn't raise yet. You're not ready. Go back, bootstrap a little bit, do A, B, and C, and then come back. Take 2 months. And for them, it's always a shock. They're like, no, I need money to do. But it's very quickly, when you have some experience, to look at, you're not clear on what you're doing yet. And that reveals itself on the ask slide, the money slide, right? Those who really are clear, you touched on it earlier, they're able to put on the money slide, I need $200,000. And in 12 months, I will launch this one MVP with this feature. I will sign 5 clients. I will create 10,000 monthly revenue. I don't need to ask you a lot of other stuff after that, because you're very clear on what you're going to do. I might ask you, how are you going to market? You touched on it earlier, who's your clients? That can be a conversation instead of in the deck if you do it correctly. if your ask slide is clear enough, it also means you did the job. And if you're not able to nail it down, it's probably because you're at the wrong stage, right? So most what I see is people, they're bootstrapping, trying to build, right? And then they start, it's hard. And I talked to investors, I didn't land an investment yet. Every single one I talk to says, well, I'm going to launch next week because all the investors ask me for traction. So I'm just going to launch and then I'm going to talk to them in 2 months. I'm like, it's the stupidest thing you can do. Because if you're not ready to launch and you don't have money to launch, the way they measure you changes the second you click that on button, right? Pre-money, they measure you against certain things to believe you can build. Is the market there? How's their speed of innovation? Are they building on the speed we're expecting, signing maybe MOUs? The second you launch, every single question is different. What's your CAC? Yeah. What's your lifetime value of a customer? You had a customer for 4 days. You don't even know their lifetime value yet. You don't know how long, when they will churn or stick. You have no idea. But they will measure you. What's your growth month over month? I've been live for 2 weeks. They're like, okay, come back to us when you have it. So now you're screwed. Now you put yourself in what I call a VC dead zone. They don't tell you that up front, but they will look at you in certain stages of your journey. And if you ask money in the wrong stage, you're going to struggle. And those are the hardest part. But it's easier when you know it, even though you don't have 1 penny in your bank account. And you know, all I need to... It also makes you focus, right? If you don't have a penny, trust me, you will end up building only that one thing that's important for you. You don't have time and luxury to do all the other stuff, which is actually great. Because the more we have, the more we get busy with all other stuff.
But here's my question to you, right? Because it's important to launch just to create traction for the sake to showcase some kind of traction. But at the same time, I agree with this logic that you've just mentioned, because it does make sense on a time level. If you launch and then you quickly go to raise funds, then you don't have enough validation or enough time, to showcase what could potentially be your lifetime value, your CAC, and so forth. So when do you think is a good time? Assuming let's say, for example, what are the good times from idea stage to seed stage, if we want to speak about a certain point? Specific example for idea stage, is it right before they launch, or is it way before they launch? So do you have some kind of timeline?
Yeah. First option for you is to talk to angels and friends and family before building. You still need to plan it out and talk about it before building. That's your first, right? Second is after you build something, you kind of validate it, like you glue together as some sort of MVP, whatever you're doing, product, whatever. You spoke to some, not customers, but potential customers. They gave you a lot of feedback. It can be anything from a Reddit thread to going to networking events to a Facebook forum. It can be anything, right? You created enough information for yourself. And then you can keep building. You have a couple of opportunities before going live. Going live, it changes everything. So you need to make 100% sure that if you go live, either you raised enough money for those first 12 months, including market activities, or you need to have a bootstrap plan to survive without 1 penny from anyone else. And if you don't have one of those two ready, do not go live. Because those use cases where someone went live and magically overnight attracted so many customers, they're rare and far between. You don't want to bet your idea on that. Very often you see guys who did that, they are the kind of guys who just sprays out 30, 40, 50 ideas a year, and they see if one stick. They're not really following one, right? For some people, that's correct. I don't believe in that as a founding journey, because it means you're not paying enough attention to what you're doing, and you're not really building it. After going live, you need money to build traction yourself.
Before we go live, let's say, all right, because eventually, obviously, you have a much better chance to raise if you have some traction, correct? So is it don't go live in terms of stay in stealth mode while building and creating traction in stealth mode? Is this what you exactly mean, or is it just don't go live with the platform yet?
Don't go live. The reason is, I can tease the investor and says, my MVP is pretty much ready. I will go live in 4 weeks. So this is your last chance to get on board. The problem with that is landing money takes a while. Even if he says, yes, you need that money to go live, I guarantee you that next time you speak, it's been 3 months or 4 months, and he will say, well, what happened? You didn't go live. You just put a blocker in the way of yourself. You need to plan your company in the way that I can if I absolutely want to go live, I have a plan how to go live without funds. And if I get funds, I can accelerate it with this and this metrics and these other things I can do. Because otherwise, unfortunately, I meet people all the time that are racing and they're like, I'm going live in 2 weeks. I'm just the final money. Yeah. I meet them 3 months later, 6 months later, 9 months later, and they're still not live, right? And it's sad. It's just because they keep putting themselves in the same position then they postpone the launch. There is nothing worse than a postponed launch. If you're lucky, it was so small that no one noticed, and you can just pull it down from the website, right? But your job is to create wins. So people have a tendency to overpromise. They think that will get them better terms. I say write your deck in a way that you underpromise, but you overdeliver every time. It's so much easier. If you think you can get 100 clients the first month, put on your deck 20. And even if you didn't succeed, in your head, when you send that monthly investor reporting, oh, we got 60 clients. Oh, wow, they're over-delivering. They're doing amazing. What will happen then? You will create this traction where they just believe that you will execute and keep delivering. And it's not about failing. It's about setting yourself up to win. Right.
I'm so interested in one more point that I'm going to touch on, but going to under promising and over delivering. I had a friend who was generating around $40,000 a month, and he just launched his startup maybe about 8 months, and he told the investors they're generating $20,000. I'm like, but you're generating double of that. He was like, yeah, watch and see what's going to happen with the investors. So yeah, I mean, definitely under promise, over deliver. But going again back to because you really triggered me about that. It's a very interesting topic. Maybe timing is as important as all your slides that you have in the deck. So you recommend not to go live to create traction so you can actually have a better shot. Stay in, I wouldn't even call it stealth mode anymore, but just don't go live, as simple as that, and package yourself to raise the funds.
If you absolutely need to test your product on live audience, I know it's a bit costly, but you can talk about that later, because if you look into getting these free grants and free hosting and free things that are available for startups, I would prefer that a founder does free pilots. Okay, because what does a free user create? He creates feedback. And there's nothing more important than customer feedback. I'm building the best product. No one cares. They care when they get it in their hand, and they will tell you what that product needs to do for them, right?
Yeah. And I actually don't mind people charging for that, because, sometimes whenever you put a price tag to it, you might lose a lot of the feedback might change. You might lose a lot of people. You think that they're interested. But again, adding to whatever you've said as well, today, AI kind of enabled us to create and build prototypes, within weeks today, right? Yeah. So here you go. Let's assume that I am able to create a prototype within weeks. I tested out the markets. I've received some of these these metrics ready. I go and put them on the table of the investors. Would that be considered the same thing as going live? I just want to. I'm trying to understand.
As long as you're not
the timeline
if you're doing, call it private pilots, paid, non-paid, whatever. You are in a test. You are in your, call it a sandbox. You're testing. That is completely acceptable. Now you can create the traction, the proof that we got this customer feedback. We kind of proved some price points. We prove that people are interested, and we're going to do this for the launch. Waitlists works amazingly with the investors. The only challenge with waitlist is that if they last too long before you actually really go live, they turn stale, right?
Mm.
So it's the same with waitlist. You have to. I know you are a growth hacker by heart, Rony. So
Yeah, yeah,
a waitlist is a magic trick. It works amazingly well, but if it's turned stale, it's almost worthless, right? And there's nothing worse than having a waitlist of I have 20,000 on my waitlist, and you went live, and investors see you converted 200 people. That's because all the others they already left 6 months ago, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's so many tools at your disposal. It depends what you're building and which market you're in. Test users is amazing. Test users is not the same as being live. And you would be surprised how willing people are to feedback you about your product if it's a product they have an interest in. And
Yeah.
that information is so critical. Now you can weed out problems, you can change features, you can do whatever you need before actually launching. Because there's nothing worse than getting the money or part of the money going live and total disaster, right? 90% the customer complaining, 90% of what you want to build, they don't care about. Because this is also, we all do it. I know I'm going to build this amazing product that has all these features. It turns out 90%, that was only
Yeah.
in your head. In the real
True.
world, no one cares.
True. I call it blinded by your vision, by the way, and I've felt for
Yes,
it
yeah, that's a
multiple
good one.
times.
Yeah, I'm
So
going to steal that one. I'm going to use it in one of my presentations later.
yeah, and just credit me at the bottom.
I will. I will.
All right. I actually wanted to add. I'm going to take a few questions from the chat here.
Mhm.
So whoever has a question, please do post them in the chat. I'll highlight as many as I can while during the conversation with Peter. So a lot of another important metric is because a lot of founders think metric means paid signups or even signups. A metric could be, before going live, we've interviewed 200 founders, and this is what they've
Yes.
said, right?
Yeah.
This is a metric at the end of the day. It's so interesting that you've mentioned about going live, because I think that's something that I've maybe never really took or put so much weight on it. And I
Mm.
have a question here. Let me see. I actually have a couple of questions here. Does this apply? Okay, great. Here, I'm going to highlight it. It's by Scott. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing it. Yes. So, really
Yes.
interesting about not going live. Everyone seems to say you have to have traction. Does this apply to physical products as well? Interesting.
I would be scared to death about launching a physical product without having proof it will work first, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put it
Yeah.
live in the market until I have some, again, pilot clients who, yes, we're willing to buy it, we can feedback. And a lot of customers, even entrepreneur customers, enterprise level, they're very happy doing that, because by bringing them into pilot stage, they can feedback to get the actual product they really need, right? And solve a few things. So enterprise customers are very happy doing pilots. It's a little bit longer sign-up stage, but they're very happy. Physical depends on the physical product, but
Yeah.
we see it all the time. It's like go the biggest ones. Go the car industry. They launch a car and they planned it for 2 years, built, and total failure. Who knows what happened? But someone failed at some point in that journey, right? They did not get enough feedback. Most of us are not building such large physical products, but if you get people to at least physical product, at least get a pre-orders. I
That's a good
also
one.
don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand. I worked with quite a few e-commerce companies, and they're scared to death about running tests. We have this product, but we want to produce it first. We have 3 months production, 2 months shipping. But I'm like, yeah, but run a test ad. Run a test ad under a different brand in the market. And they're like, no, but I will. The market will be used already. I'm like, it's not true. You have a massive market, and what you will know if you're running a product with 4 colors, you will know which color that sell before you order 8,000 units from China, right? So I don't. But I think you're blind again. They're blind by the vision, and they're convinced in their head. I have someone I know. They did that, and they got stuck with 75% of their first order. They still have it in stock 2 years later.
Yeah.
The product itself is doing well. They just, some of them had the wrong color. That's it.
Yeah. Look at it. It's as well the same for even applications, because even when you want to test it out, you can always launch an ad. And then a lot of people told me, but what if we do get a paid user and the app and the MVP is not ready yet? I'm like, so what? Just tell them, are you willing to pay for wait for 6 months? If not, just refund. But at least you
Yep.
validated. But yeah, what we can't
Yes.
get them anymore. I'm like, look, if your market has only 100 clients, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, if you're getting 100 out of these 10,000 or 100,000 potential clients, so what? Dropping 100 of them, it's all right.
It's so
Um,
interesting. This turns, it's a little bit off topic, but it turns back to, I used to have people coming to me already decades ago and like, Peter, I need to have a coffee with you because of your experience. I have this amazing idea. I come to them, we meet, and then they almost can't tell me the idea because they say, well, if you know, you might steal it.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
people are busy. If I'm running a business, I'm not going to drop everything I'm doing to open your automated car wash.
yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
we're busy. We want to be with people who can execute. The best thing you can do, someone might still think like one of your feature set, implement them yourself. Discuss your idea with as many people as humanly possible, even people in your industry, even people in similar companies. So when we built YAP, the digital bank, the first standalone digital bank in UE, right? What did we do? We knew certain things about the market that we have to make localized products and features. The rest of it, we modeled on Revolut and N26 because they're the best in the business. Why would I think that I can do something better than a $10 billion company when they proved with 50 million users that this really works? I will model on that. I
Yeah.
will focus on what makes me unique for my unique local markets, right? And
I
that
think you
worked.
I think you touched point on something extremely important that a lot of first-time founders, serial entrepreneurs understand this point, but first-time founders don't, which is getting an investor to sign an NDA. I go like, good luck, you know.
Yeah.
So and even I
Don't even
think
ask.
like I think even the investors that do sign an NDA, I'll probably be afraid of them more than actually getting them to sign an NDA. I would be
Yeah.
very concerned about the investor that do sign an NDA. So here's the biggest concern: a lot of these founders would go there with are very concerned about sharing these ideas with investors, just in case these investors would actually take some of the ideas and give it back to some of the startups that they've invested in. So, what's your 2 cents on that?
So 99% of professional investors, they don't do that because even though that like the venture capital market seems so large, they all know each other. And reputation spreads so quickly that if you are known to be the VC that plays dirty, all the good founders, they stop asking you for money. And now as a VC fund, you're dead. You don't get good opportunities anymore. So they do not do that. There's always a bad apple here and there, but they will not kill your business. Don't worry about the NDA. To put it like this, if you were creating the next Coca-Cola, you would tell them the full business plan. You don't need an NDA. You will let them taste the Coca-Cola. You wouldn't give them the recipe. That's the one thing that there are certain IP aspects you don't share until, like you had several rounds, you're in due diligence, you signed some sort of pre-term sheet, because due diligence starts after the term sheet. This is also a misconception, right? Some
Yeah,
investors in this region, they would actually send you full due diligence. I'm like, bro, send me terms, I'll give you everything. But first tell me what you're planning to do. A term sheet is not binding, but at least tell me you're interested in this before I give you, because due diligence takes time. It takes a lot of effort, especially on small teams. It can be very heavy to deal with, right? So I would not bother asking for an NDA, but there are certain information that you just hold back until, like when you have a data room that you should have before talking to any investor, your first part of the data room that they have access to is quite light. It has the key things.
yeah.
Then there is typically at least 3 levels to this data room that they can access further and further when you, depending on where they are in the stage of due deal and interest with you. So, yeah.
Peter, we have another question here. So, how do we
Mhm.
do? So, we're just gonna we already crossed time, so we're just gonna take a few more questions. One of them is, how do we do the evaluation, or how much percentage stake should we give before accepting the investor's offer? Sorry.
Yeah, there are some golden rules. It depends on the stage, but let me start like pre-seed or seed. Your aim what's your company worth? It's not worth anything. It's worth how much equity you're willing to give up comparing to how much money you need for the 12 months of running your business. If I need $1 million, I'm willing to give it 10%, my company is worth 10 million. This cannot be measured by an accountant, a CFO. And professional investors, they know this. They will say, to get in, we need to own minimum 10% to not be diluted this much in the future. Anywhere from 10 to 15% in the first round is a negotiation. It depends on how much you're coming in with. Never ever, if someone goes 2025, do not sign them. They're not by the time you reach the Series A and later, you hardly own anything. And I guarantee you very often that your first investor is not your most important one. They're just getting you from A to B. They're the most important because they get you from A to B, but for your growth, you need bigger ones later. And they have terms. We need this much to do this stage until you are big enough to flip the table on them, right? And by the time, I've seen horror stories where you sign too much too early for each round, you sell your company and people, oh my God, you did so well. You sold for $200 million. I'm like, yeah, but I got 1 million because I just kept getting diluted and preferential shares. And a lot of investors, especially come to institution, they will say, I need to make back four times my money before we start sharing. If you now have a bad sale, a down round, you just get eaten, right? It's a little bit the same with ESOPs. All VCs have the golden rules on the ESOPs. They will always ask for the max because they're like, it's good for you. You need to plan your own ESOPs and then you have to negotiate. They will try to get you to put 20% ESOP, something crazy. If you give them 20% ESOP, you don't distribute it, you distribute 10%. By the next round, you don't get this 10% leftover back. It's get distributed with you and those investors. So they got free shares and you're getting diluted. So to get every single metric on each round, it's so important. So when I work with founders, it's really important for me that we plan. Like I ask them, what are you looking to achieve? Some say, I just want to build a company that I can sell in 3-4 years for this much money and me and my family is happy. Some says, no, I want to create the maximum growth over the next 5 years for an IPO or a big exit. Those two journeys are 80% similar, but they're 20% different. Now you can decide, okay, what kind of money am I going for? What kind of terms am I going for? It's a decision you have to make quite early. It doesn't mean it can't change, but you make it depending on how you talk to the investors.
Super interesting, Peter. Super interesting. I mean, if I want to open up the question about ESOS, we're probably going to take another hour here. But for those, I mean, we're going to have to wrap it up. Peter, thank you so much. And for those, for the residents watching us, Peter's office hour is a virtual office hour. It's tomorrow. RSVP. You get, plenty of personalized advice. Make use of Peter's time. It's only 60 minutes. I think it's 4 p.m. tomorrow. Let me just make sure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah. So it's 4 p.m. UAE time. For those that are interested in that opportunity, we've already shared the residency application. Go ahead, apply. It takes us less than 24 hours to accept or reject you. So have a look at our residency. Plenty of value over there. And Peter, I'm going to share for those that are interested to actually reach out to Peter as well directly. I'm going to share your LinkedIn profile here on the chat. Please add him, DM him if you're interested or have something interesting that you want to share with Peter. Peter, thank you so much for being here with us today. And
thank you for having
me. As much as I loved, man, our conversation tomorrow, to an extent, I'll probably share our office hour tomorrow. So I'm thanks for having us. Thanks for being here with us. And I hope I see your face again at our meetups.
You will, absolutely. Like this is check Founder Connects out, guys, those who are not members, because out of the programs doing this for 30 years, this is a really good one. There's something about the vibe, and I said the non-transactional nature that works very well. Everyone has each other's back.
I appreciate you, Peter. I appreciate you. Thanks a lot. And for the rest, thank you all for joining.